Hello everyone and welcome to Genetics Day 8, and today we're going to be talking about genetic engineering. And we started this unit watching the Vox Explained Designer DNA, which was all about genetic engineering with CRISPR. But we all have experience with genetic engineering through dog breeds, which are done through artificial selection, so new varieties of plants and animals. So dog breeds came about through humans with selective breeding, which you may already see on your handout. We're going to talk about, but we also have experience with new varieties of plants that have been created through genetic modification or GMOs, and through many plant species that were created through artificial selection. So let's go ahead and get started with today's extended do now. So, for thousands of years, we have produced new varieties of plants and animals. We did this by selectively breeding plants and animals for particular traits. To breed means to mate or reproduce. So this isn't using technology necessarily, although it can be done using technology, but it can also be done by just getting the two animals to literally mate, right? Get them to have sex with each other only in the way that we select their traits to be passed on. And for plants, you know, they don't actually need to have intercourse, but instead you would fertilize one plant with the pollen of another plant to create the desired cross. And actually, several students, shout out to Kelly Fang and Tenzin Songpo in period 7, who have sent me TikToks of unlikely animal crosses. And we're going to talk about how those are trick talks during class after you guys do these notes. So stay tuned. I think that will be Monday, April 26th, that we'll talk about that during class. So to breed means to mate or reproduce. Selective breeding takes advantage of genetic variation occurring in nature. In other words, the great variety found in wild plants and animals makes selective breeding possible. Selective breeding is also called artificial selection, so that's the same thing. Selective breeding and artificial selection, where we're choosing the traits. Because rather than letting nature decide, natural selection, what animals breed, humans intervene. So human intervention is part of selective breeding or artificial selection. They mean the same thing. Humans use selective breeding to pass wanted traits on to the next generation of organisms. American botanist Luther Burbank may have been the greatest selective breeder of all time. He developed more than 800 kinds of plants. Burbank used selective breeding to cross or mate organisms that have different traits to bring together the best of both organisms. The offspring made by such crosses are called hybrids. So cross offspring are called hybrids. Many of Burbank's hybrid crosses mix the disease resistance of one plant with the food-making ability of another. The results were new lines of plants that had the traits farmers needed to make more food. But it's kind of hard to imagine plants that were crossed together to create foods that we eat right now. For example, many different plants, including broccoli and kale, actually come from a mustard plant. But that can be hard to visualize. But something that you may have seen in real life already is this hybrid animal. So this is a lab or a Labrador retriever, and this is a poodle. So these are two dog breeds that were created over time through human beings crossing different dog breeds, but selective breeding can be used to create a new hybrid crossbred dog called the Labradoodle. So both of these dogs started as wolves, right? And selective breeding was used to create a Labrador retriever and a poodle, but then we mixed these two breeds to create the new Labradoodle. So that can also be done in the lab, but it is much more difficult. So selective breeding is usually the way we get hybrid animal species. So now, based upon what you read, first question, define selective breeding in a complete sentence. So selective breeding is when humans choose human intervention which animals and plants breed together in order to pass wanted traits on to the offspring. So human intervention is happening here. That is what makes it selective breeding or artificial selection. So unlike natural selection, where nature chooses, this is artificial selection or human intervention, human choice. So fill in the blank here. Selective breeding is also referred to as artificial selection. Number 3, in the text, Luther Burbank was able to create a plant that produced food and resisted a certain disease. How did he do this? By crossing a disease-resistant plant with a food-making plant to create a hybrid. And that's the new vocabulary word, a hybrid species that had both traits. Question number 4. The Labradoodle is a product of selective breeding. Explain what this statement means. So the Labradoodle is the result of humans mating together, a Labrador Retriever and a Poodle. Humans chose the traits. So we said, the Lab and the Poodle are really cute, but you know what would be cuter? A Labradoodle. And we intervened, we selected what traits we wanted and created this new hybrid dog species. But sure is cute. And these dogs are very expensive to buy, by the way, a Labradoodle, because of this process. So these are already purebred dogs, meaning there was a lot of incest, dog incest basically happening to create dogs with this particular look. And sometimes that can really go wrong for the animals. So we see here, this is a bulldog, and this headline says, "Can the bulldog be saved?" So this poor bulldog, you'll see he's really cute, but bulldogs only live for about 8 or 9 years, and most dogs can live to be about 12 years old. And some of the reasons for this dog having a shortened lifespan has to do with this really flat nose, so it's difficult for the dog to breathe. They are prone to heart problems. They have these really short, stubby legs, which affects their spine. And all of these traits were artificially selected by humans. So the dog would look this way, right? So we said we only care about how this dog looks, and as a result, the dog had health problems. So humans are keeping this dog alive, even though it really would not be able to survive on its own without humans assisting it. But we decided we wanted the dog to look like this. And how did we create a dog that looked like this? By breeding the most bulldog traits through generations without regard for anything else about the animal. So the humans that bred these dogs didn't care about the actual life of the dog. Instead, they only cared that the resulting dogs would look this particular way. So not very nice for the bulldog. Human beings, as you may have seen, this guy on Tiger King. What was his name? Doc something. He was a real creep with not just the animals, but also women. These are Ligers or Tyons. And so what happens here with these species is they are similar. Okay, so a lion and a tiger are similar species. They're both big cats, but they're not extremely closely related, and they would never naturally breed together in the wild. So these offspring, the ligers or the tyons, depending upon which one is the male and which one is the female in the original cross, they are sterile, meaning they cannot reproduce. The same thing happens if you breed a donkey and a horse. So a donkey and a horse have a different number of chromosomes. They're very close. They're very similar, just like the lion and the tiger. They're close, close enough that you can make a baby of those two. You can make a mule, which is half donkey, half tiger, or not half donkey, half donkey, half horse. And you can also make a liger or a tyon, which is half tiger and half lion. But those offspring cannot have a baby themselves. So they are sterile or barren, which means they cannot reproduce naturally. So these species, they are not evolutionarily fit. They would not be able to survive naturally, but they have been artificially bred by humans into this new hybrid variety. And that, by the way, is part of why these TikToks showing these new hybrid species are total scams, total lies, because genes are too complicated, folks. We do not have the technology yet that could create these fantastic hybrid species that I've seen advertised on TikTok. So thank you for the students that shared those with me. We will talk about those in class. So words of the day, you're going to fill in these definitions. Genetic engineering is the deliberate modification of the characteristics of an organism by manipulating its genetic material or its DNA. And this can be done by using CRISPR, which we saw in the Vox Explained Designer DNA. But of course, we do not have a very sophisticated ability to use CRISPR yet. We're not in there exchanging traits in living organisms, although that may be the future of this technology. Next, we have selective breeding, which is the process by which humans choose which animals or plants mate together to selectively develop particular. And the next question has you hypothesize, why is selective breeding a form of genetic engineering? So pause this video and go ahead and answer that question. So you might have said that selective breeding is a form of genetic engineering because humans are intervening and choosing which traits to pass on to create new breeds or new species, depending on how different they are from the original. So you might have written something different there, but this is something that could be your answer. And all right, last one. Selective breeding results in advances in agriculture. Long before Europeans came to the New World, Native Americans selectively bred teosinte. Teosinte is a wild grass native to central Mexico. Teosinte was selectively bred to make corn. Corn is far more productive and nutritious than teosinte. Corn is also now one of the world's most important crops. And why is it important? Because it feeds a lot of people. Thanks, corn. Modern corn was selectively bred from teosinte at least 6,000 years ago. Over time, the hard case around the kernel disappeared, which left rows of soft kernels we enjoy today. The plant has also been bred to become larger and produce more. So, like I said, we all have experience with selectively bred crops, even if we didn't know about it. I'm guessing everyone here has eaten corn or eaten something made from corn. Lord knows corn syrup isn't everything. So now you're going to explain the development of modern corn. Imagine you are sitting at the dinner table, maybe even tonight, and a giant bowl of corn is placed on the table. You say to the others at the table, "Did you know that corn wasn't always like that?" Your little sister says you're weird and doesn't believe you. Explain how modern corn developed from teosinte. In your response, be sure to identify and explain the process used. So you are going to describe how teosinte became corn. What did Native Americans do in your own words? Your answer should definitely include selective breeding. So, what traits did they select for to get the tasty, soft kernels we have in modern corn today? So, go ahead and answer that one on your own. Today we talked about genetic engineering and selective breeding. Today was day 8 of Unit 7 genetics. We're almost done. The last day is day 9. And we talked about our aim today: how do humans create new varieties of plants and animals? So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow on Zoom. Bye, guys.